We've got an exciting new amplifier to talk about here today. It's a WU Audio WA24.
20th anniversary edition.
The 20th anniversary. They're celebrating their 20th anniversary in Headphone biz, which is awesome. Congratulations, guys.
Was it the WA1? Was their first one?
I don't know, was it?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. They had a chart at the show.
Last model I heard was 3, so I believe it. It started somewhere.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this thing is beautiful. I mean, the build, the look, fit and finish, the tubes. I mean, every angle you look at it is gorgeous. It's a nice, beautiful.
It's a real work of art.
Industrial design.
This is just nice.
Yeah. It's got to have one of the nicest knobs in the industry.
That volume control, I know people, I've heard some of the technical guys talk about, oh, it's a shitty volume control, blah, blah. And volume controls matter, especially if you're using it all the time.
Well, yeah.
If you just put it in one spot, you might not notice.
Well, it's your main interface with the amp.
Yeah. You touchy-feely this one. And this is prominently shown on the front of the amp. And anyway, let's talk about this thing. It's we've been playing with it we had it at the show. We had it at CanJam, New York. And it came back with us. And here it is. And we've been using it for a little bit.
Well, I guess as soon as you take it out of the box, you're thinking, man, this is a real.
Yeah. Well, from the WA23.
Similar to the 23.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we took that out of the box.
Very
it was
dense.
like, wow.
But now the power supply is internal to the unit.
Right. So now it's even heavier.
So
with 38 pounds, I believe.
38 pounds.
So.
Yeah, it feels like there's a slug of tungsten in there or something. Like it's a very dense unit.
Yeah, it's not that it's just heavy. It's like compact and heavy. Yeah.
It's a cool design. The bottom half of the amp in the rear is the power supply, and it's isolated from the top half. And the front part, which is more or less the output transformers and whatever electronics are in here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course the tubes have their own space in the middle where they can throw a little bit of heat. And that's the cool thing about this amp. It doesn't throw that much heat.
It is the coolest amp.
Tube
amp in the industry.
Yeah, it's actually cooler than some solid state amps, actually.
Yeah, you would think you're driving like 12 AU7s with this thing or something, even though you've got 4 power tubes sitting here.
Yeah, we had it on for 8 hours the other day, and you could just walk up and just hold your finger right on the tube.
Yeah, the I have a WA33 at home, which of course is it's a massive 2-piece amp they make, and it runs hot. So they've obviously figured out a bit more efficiency, which is good because electricity costs are going up, things like that. And that is one of the things with tube amps that people always piss and moan about, right? It's like, I can't use it in the summer because I'm trying to do my best to air condition my home.
Yeah, you have a space
cool
heater
my
on
home.
in the summer.
Yeah, right. So
literally.
Yeah.
It's the least efficient space heater on the planet.
Yeah. And the WA23 runs pretty cool too, but this is the coolest. This WA24. So
that is a pro for a lot of people, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the tubes are custom made. They're Strati SA109E is the name of the tube. So no tube rolling on this one yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's going to be adapters or something one day, but for now this is it. Made just for WU Audio.
Yeah.
Just for this amp.
Custom tube.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Mid-gain direct heated triode power tubes is what he has them listed.
Someone will probably figure out how to put adapters on this thing at some point. And
usually
put different tubes in it.
Yeah.
It would screw the look up though. If you put adapters and stuff.
That's true.
It wouldn't be as clean looking.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. They're beautiful tubes. I've seen some people take some nice photos of the amp.
They do have a nice glow.
Yeah, you take a close-up of these tubes. They're gorgeous. I don't think I've ever called a tube gorgeous before. But there it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're specifically designed to enjoy looking at them while you're listening for sure. The alignment and everything. Just perfect.
Yeah.
So
a lot of attention to detail on this, and it shows. It shows in the build. It shows, like you said, you take it out of the box, the feel of it. It's a serious freaking chunk of amp.
And of course, it has all the WU Audio goodness. It's a Class A single-ended.
Yeah, point-to-point wired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still no boards in there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, custom transformers to fit it in this bad boy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's all transformer because it's heavy.
Yeah, this whole section back here, from what I understand, that whole thing is just
on the bottom.
Yeah. It's just royals
for power
in the copper end.
Yeah. So yeah, all in all, build quality. But let's, I think, why don't we go over quickly ins and outs?
All right.
So what's the? You want to cover the outputs? What's the outputs on this thing? I don't know. What do they got?
I don't
Don't they
know.
have? Did you say they have everything?
It's the Noah's Ark of outputs.
Oh.
It has one of everything. It has the 4-pin XLR, was right here, and then 4.4 millimeter, which is what we're connected to, and then the 3.5 millimeter and the 6.35 millimeter.
It
So-
is unusual for an amp like this to have a 3.5 on it. But
Yeah,
he said
really?
you could, we haven't tried it, but he says you can run some IEMs on it.
Yeah.
It's that quiet, so
Well, you
I
know
guess
that's a
that's why I
good
put it
point.
on.
A lot of headphones still come with 3.5, and of course, legacy style headphones are all. A lot of them are 3.5. So you technically, if they're running a stock
Yeah.
cable or whatever cable you're
Yeah.
running, it has that your G2G with this, and it's true. It's quiet. It's a very, very, very quiet amp, and I think people are saying they're running IMs on this with no real
that's
sensitive.
that's
stuff.
what I hear.
Yeah.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't have anything real sensitive here,
No.
but
The
Yeah, you
opposite.
don't have to use like super high impedance headphones or something to really draw out the sound. It's self-biasing all the way up and down from 8 ohms to 600 or something. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's got 2 sets of single-ended inputs and 1 set of XLR. And, because it's a single-ended amp, it should sound the same. But obviously, depending on DACs, sometimes DACs output a lot lower voltage on their RCAs. So,
Right.
so I guess that could be a difference. But
yeah, there is an input selector on the front, so you can select between either the 2 RCA inputs or the XR. So a total of 3 sources can come to this bad boy,
yeah,
and
it still has high and low gain as well. So, and it has a lot of power. So the DZs were great on low gain. We didn't need a whole lot. So
yeah,
Well, yeah. So overall, very versatile.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, we tried this on all three. We've tried it on all our headphones. We tried it on the AB1266, Diana MR, Diana DZ, and a new Joel. And the only thing it's really I don't consider to be a good mate for would be the 1266. It's the 1266 seemed to like every other amp prior to this. This one, I mean, and I understand why. I mean, the Diana series have been out for a long time, and Jack and family who
Yeah.
design these amps, they use our headphones as a benchmark for designing amplifiers, along with others. And they wanted to make sure, I think it worked well with particularly the Diana DZ, which is our current highest res
Yeah.
Diana series.
And that's what we showed it with in New York because we thought the same.
Yeah, and it sounds beautiful with DZ. You
Yeah.
put a really good DAC on this thing, on a DZ. I mean, people are just, what was running in the show? What DAC did we have?
we had the Cyan 2, the Hollow Audio Cyan 2.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it has a little hotter output. I did find that Jack says that it'll go down to 250 millivolts or whatever, all the way up to 6 volts is what he says on the amps. And I did find that we had the Wandla and the Pro mode was clipping a little bit, and that's like 9.2
Oh,
volts or
geez.
something.
Yeah,
So,
well, that'll clip just about anything.
so I know the Wandla is about 5, or the Cyan 2 is about 5 volts.
Mhm.
So that seemed to be about the sweet spot. A
Ah.
little bit higher voltage, this thing really likes.
Right.
But if you go too far, it starts to clip. And then if you go down too low, I know it'll do it, but I wasn't really thrilled with
Yeah.
the lower output DACs. But
I know at one point it's been tried with the DCS Lena too, which will do 6 volts, and it worked okay. So that's probably, I would guess that would be something you'd want to look for as more of an upper limit.
Yeah, the Lena was a little strange. There is some synergy here. I don't think it's that universal. The Lena actually sounded better with 2 volts,
Oh,
Well,
but it wasn't. It didn't sound like a Lena DAC.
ah,
Like it kind of lost something.
yeah,
I don't know.
right.
So
Huh.
that was at SoCal. I was able to spend some time with
Got it.
the one
yeah,
morning.
right. They
But
changed it out.
yeah. So yeah, it was definitely. I thought it was better with 2 volts, but it just wasn't as
Right.
dynamic.
Well, that's cool.
But-
I mean, that's good to know,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a
Try
DAC
it.
with a variable
Yeah.
output, then, we did a video once on that.
Yeah.
Where you did it, right? Where you can
Right.
adjust the DAC volume versus the amplifier and then find a sweet spot for the best sound.
Yeah.
And, it's difficult to do, but it's not a big deal once you figure it out.
Yeah.
It's 10 minutes.
I'd certify it fresh with the Cyan 2, which means probably also the Hollow Audio May, because it's very similar architecture. So that product line will definitely make this thing. The Rockna Wave Dream is probably
Yeah.
also an incredible pairing because it's right in line with that. So.
Right.
Yeah, if you've got a beautiful source, I mean, the higher end DCS stuff, any of the higher end DACs.
Yeah, the Rossini,
yeah,
or the bar talk.
This thing will just scale with it. The clarity level of this amp is really nice. It's beautiful. It's you could just hear through it, and it's not bright or anything like that. It has a good lush sound to it. It's got good fullness. It doesn't sound lacking at all, even with using it on lower end DACs. But certainly you don't want to gimp it with a cheaper DAC. You really want to. I mean, you're dealing. What's the price point on this thing? 13, 14.
13,000, 12,999.
Yeah, 13 grand. So I mean, most people are going to be spending around that for the DAC usually when you're at this level of amp, and that's about where you should be with it. You should be at a higher end source.
Yeah, you really want it to sing, right? And why miss out on performance?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, why else would you be getting an amp like this, right?
So let's talk about the sound, because we all listen to this on basically all our headphones here, and you start with you.
Well,
Mr. Jason.
Yeah, I'd say refinement, right?
Totally.
It's like where like a WA33 is like brute force, right? And just like that's why it's really good with the 1266. This is just like effortless, but smooth and refined and very detailed.
Agreed. Yeah, it plays through really well with good recordings. And it's not that it doesn't play well. Like I was throwing a lot of classic rock on here, and some classic rock just sucks, But there's some good recordings of Zeppelin.
Yeah.
There's reissues and stuff out there, and this thing sounds great.
Yeah. My note was it's the best I've ever heard the DZ.
Agreed.
Right.
It's just it seemed like it was perfect pairing, made for it type of deal. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing I noticed the most is it track to track. You really notice like how differently everything was recorded.
Yep.
It's like I think that the higher end you go, that becomes more of a thing where it's like, everything just doesn't sound as flat. Some songs sound very spacious and you could hear the whole room and everything, and some songs sound closed in and everything.
yeah, you get the recording.
And so that's what happens with gear like this. It's the variation is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a contrast thing, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I guess you could look at the same way as when you get into higher end cameras and lenses.
Yeah, same thing.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're like, oh, I didn't realize how dark black that could be, compared to that.
Well, yeah, it's like
And,
going to OLED.
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah, or a
like
screen.
you get 15 years of looking at LCDs, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, the contrast, the subtle contrast in this thing is really cool. And it's funny because it pops like, the longer you sit with it and play with it, the more that you notice it going through your normal stuff you're used to listening to. Yeah, I mean, it's cool.
I don't expect that much transparency from a tube amp. I expect it to bring more sound, more color, whatever, whatever the tube amp's mission is.
Yeah.
And this one, it's like every track was different depending on what was recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has a lot of resolution though. So like I was listening to Baba O'Reilly, how the opening is like
Mm-hmm.
whatever the keys is, whatever the synthesizer is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a little sharp.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the piano comes and that's a little sharp.
Yeah, you got to
And it's
turn it
like,
down.
It kind of smooths that over, but it's still very detailed with really great decay, especially on the piano part, where normally I'd expect it to smooth over and lose it,
Mhm.
and then it'd be a little muddy or whatever. No, it was really, really nice.
Yeah, it's like a best of both worlds,
Yeah.
It's kind of solid state like, but
Yeah.
also kind of tube like.
It's got a unique bass impact too. Like I noticed one thing on it. It's like, it's funny. It's almost soft and fast at the same time. And it's, I hate to call it like, sounds like an electrostat because, we don't make electrostats, but it's kind of like, it's almost like that, but yet it's full and it hits hard. But it's almost it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
got its own bass impact, its own character to bottom end. It sounds cool.
The WA33, the low end dynamics are visceral, right?
Right.
And this doesn't have that.
It's pure brute force.
Right.
This has incredible detail in the
It's like
bass.
detailed, refined,
Which-
smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
bass.
I've heard that a couple of times now with a few different stacks, and it's rare. And I think a lot of people, if they haven't been in this kind of arena for price and budget, I think you'd be surprised at what detailed bass actually sounds
Yeah,
like.
right.
Yeah.
And man, this brings it.
Well, especially when you pair it with a high-res headphone like Diana
Well-
DZ, it's stunning. It's cool that you can hear right through the tubes, and what's cooler though? It's in the recording. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
it's there.
sure.
We're streaming music most of
Yeah.
the time.
This isn't adding some
Yeah.
digital effect
Well,
that's
yeah.
making
Yeah,
up
right.
new sounds.
Yeah,
Like,
it's there. It's
It's
always
always
been
been
there.
there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You could tell we're related, right?
Oh yeah.
did you have any test tracks that had a really solid bass detail example?
I wasn't even like, I was just going over and just
Yeah.
whatever was playing, so I wasn't really looking for anything specific.
Yeah,
So
Doing It Right by Daft Punk was the one that really stood out to me. Those first three notes, they're all supposed to, they're three different bass notes, but they're all supposed to be the exact same volume level. That's how they made it. And most things, one of them sounds louder because the amp just does that note better or that frequency better or whatever. And it was just perfectly flat. Perfectly flat volume across all three, but then extremely distinct. And then they decayed into each other. Like they didn't overlap each other between notes.
Right.
So it's like, even on some of the higher end stuff I've heard that really struggles with that. Like all of a sudden, get between the notes and all of a sudden it's like, sounds like one note now. Okay, now it sounds like another.
Right.
Like this was just two notes melded, and then out. And yeah.
If we were more into classical or orchestral or something like that too, I'm sure we would rip that. You could just tear that apart, and that's the big. It's the biggest thing I know over the years when you get into the real high res systems and 2-channel and stereo systems, right, where you just feel like you're where there's a 50 people singing on a stage, right?
Yeah.
it starts getting complicated.
If it's mic'd properly, where you could start picking out the individual voices, that's what the gear at this level in headphones is completely capable of.
Interstellar, Dune, and Blade Runner were the three soundtracks I listened to, and those are ones where you can like hear the orchestra stepping away from you,
Right.
in the layout. You kind of get an idea of. It seems like it was more like an amphitheater, where they were stacked backwards
Just
as opposed
depth.
to around you. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how much better we can. What else can we say about this thing that we haven't? I think maybe we're gushing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, the parts,
we like it.
We're focusing on the technical details of the sound. Like there are other amps that do different things and sound differently.
Sure.
So this is not like any of them at this price bracket are the greatest amp ever made.
Yeah, they all come at it from a little different angle.
So it's just the thing that this does, especially with the DZ, we all really like, I think.
Yeah, and if that's what you're after, this is what you want. This is what you seek.
But it's just like its little brother. It reminds me of its little brother, the 23, right? But it's more, right? It's similar, but
it's even further refined.
yeah.
And because we've had that one here for a while too. I own the WA33, the big one, and that's brute force, and that's a lot of fun with a headphone like the 1266. It was made for that headphone. I mean, literally, they tuned it. They made it for the headphone. And a lot of people appreciate that one, from the standard version all the way up to the elite version. So, but this thing is just full refinement. And Wu describes this amp as being a culmination of 20 years of experience in building amplifiers. And we get that. That's what we describe with our current model headphones. It's the same thing. We've been refining our transducers and speakers for 15 years now. And you get to a point where you have not only do you have a house sound, and you have a knack to what you do, but it's kind of like working on the same thing for 20 years. And just continuously. You never stop refining the one thing that you're after.
But in this case, clearly his limit was the tubes. He didn't want to just put the same tubes. That would be like, it'll be similar to everything else. So he had to make a custom tube for it. Right?
Well, that's the thing. You think about that. Like that's a big thing with amps is tube rolling.
Right.
And of course, that can dramatically vary a tube amp.
Right.
He decided to just make the tube to work with the amp, the sound that they were after, that sound that they've been trying to capture, which makes a ton of sense to us, to me at least.
Yeah.
This is our sound. This is what we want to display. And it's kind of like when we put out a headphone like the new Joel, and we've got, the ultra suede ear pads and the softer ear pads, and people are going, hey, this is cool. It's soft and it's nice and it's comfortable and the sound is smooth, but it's detailed. And it's kind of like where this amp goes too. It's got all the clarity that you expect out of a top shelf amp, but yet it doesn't piss you off in any way. It doesn't gnaw at you. It doesn't bother you. It sounds beautiful.
Well, at the show, Jack kept putting the Joel on this amp. It wasn't originally there, but it kept ending up here.
He just got the Joel, I think, that week, so it was new to him. So he was trying to get a feel for it.
He also still has his blue Diana TC.
Oh, right.
And that kept going over there too. I mean, the Diana TC does sound great on the WA33, but it does sound really great on this.
Right.
So because the TCs are completely unforgiving and
Yeah,
in
totally.
transparency.
Yeah, you want to
So-
hear what something sounds like, get a Dyna TC.
Yeah.
It'll show the electronics. It'll show you everything through the system to change.
For
Yeah.
good or
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes I'll get a call from someone and they'll say, "Oh, I got my TCs and I got a new amp and it sounds a bit bright." And I'm like, "Oh, so you mean your amp is bright?" Because the TCs aren't bright.
Yeah, right.
It just brought that with it. It's like, well, this,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why Joel, we had to calm that down a little bit. A little too much resolution for people.
Yeah.
A little too much. But I mean, those who are able to rock through gear or have multiple amps and preamps and stuff like that, or whatever they're running, or are willing to roll tubes and tune the system for a headphone, it's phenomenal. The people that have Dyna TCs or headphones like that are just, completely revealing, love them to death. Because, I mean, for obvious reasons, they build a system around it.
right.
And that's kind of what you're supposed to do with good speakers and
Yeah,
good
same
headphones.
thing with 1266,
Yeah, you build a system around it. You focus. Okay, I've got the speakers. Now let's make this sound the way I like it, and that's what it's all about. And I think with this amp, I think people who have been doing this a long time, who are after ultimate refinement, who have found or are about to find a source, a DAC. Hell, a reel-to-reel would probably sound unbelievable on this if you had one of those at home. Can you
Yeah, well-
imagine a master tape reel-to-reel playing into this?
I can.
Oh my God, I
Yeah.
can hear it already.
I mean,
It'd be stunning.
a turntable with a detailed and dynamic preamp too.
True.
Would
A
be-
really good turntable.
Yeah.
Yeah. With a nice phono stage would be stunning. So, I mean, if you're at that high level of refinement with your stereo system and you want to go to headphones, this is where you want to be. You could spend a lot of time going through stuff. This is where you want to be.
Yeah.
But if you're rocking through a lot of lower on amps too, it's the same thing. And if you're just kind of sick of being a little bit, I don't know what you'd call it. I mean, what would be the opposite of this as you're going up the ladder? Like, what would you describe it?
Well, I think if you're in the headphone hobby and you're climbing up, but you're not able to listen to a bunch of different amps, and because it's tough. Show impressions
It
are
is tough.
tough.
Sure.
So there aren't a lot of stores, brick and mortar, where you can hear these things. But you've got a little extra money, and you want that next step. This is a very safe purchase. I would be shocked if anybody found this offensive in any way.
Yeah.
It has to be very pleasing on most headphones across the industry. And it does need a little bit of a source, but that's a little bit easier to get
Right.
through, I think.
Yeah, and
So-
that could be your tuning right there. You have a really good pair of headphones or multiple headphones. You have you choose this as your amp, and now this thing will accept 3 different sources, so you can have
Yeah.
multiple
That too.
sources on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, very easily
And
just-
technically speaking, you could find a source that's great with rock and roll. You could find a source that's
Right.
really good with other things, and
And we found
turn a knob, like you said.
we
Mhm.
found $1,200 DACs and $18,000 DACs
Yeah.
that all sounded great. So it's like you can still step through that part of the journey and not have a terrible experience.
Right.
Have a really great.
Plus, with all
Agreed.
the outputs, it's easy to plug different headphones in. No adapters required, right?
True.
So
And I had 4 headphones in front of this thing at one point, and I plugged at least 2 of it at a time in, and if they're the same headphone, no problem, because they're
Right.
same efficiency. You could, as long as 2 people like the same volume on listening, but you could actually play multiple headphones on this. I don't know how low it'll go in impedance, but I don't think you're going to bother a tube amp with that.
MR and Joel were very easy to A/B.
Right, true. Yeah,
On the balance
same
connectors.
efficiency, same impedance. Yeah, so that would be something where you could actually have multiple listeners using one amplifier if you wanted to share it, especially because you have 4 outputs on the front. So yeah, it's pretty versatile.
Yeah, and you'll definitely want to use your DAC fixed, because
Yeah.
Oh
right.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. You want to
In
use
this
this.
case, yeah.
don't worry about the preamp volume control.
Yeah, no, leave it alone.
You want to
Yeah.
use this volume
Yeah.
control.
This is the volume control you want to be playing with. This is the one. It's a beautiful, top shelf, best in the world volume control. So, it plays into the clarity of this thing. I mean, I go back decades in audio, and volume controls are a problem, especially when you get to this level. They are a problem. They're a
Yeah.
problem where you place them within a circuit design. They're a problem in terms of tracking left-right channel balance,
Yeah.
particularly at the lower end of volume,
Yeah.
where you might, one channel might be a dB, a couple tenth of a dB off from the other, so you got an imbalance,
Right.
which is particularly annoying with headphones. Speakers, not so much. You might not notice it because of the room and everything around you. But with headphones, it starts to get
Yeah.
noticeable at some point.
I don't know if it's rarer, but and I think we said it earlier, but the Alpine RK50
Ah, right.
is the pot.
Mhm.
So, I know that tube amps don't always measure phenomenally. I know it's a challenging thing to measure, but I'd love to see the measurements on just the volume control, like going through the different, all the way down, all the way
I don't
up.
think anyone ever
seeing the
measures
channel
volume
matching
control.
and
control
everything.
measurements.
Well, like, especially for channel matching.
Yeah, channel
just to
matching,
see
yeah.
what it does, because
With high-end resistors and stuff, when you start dealing with the really good shit, they will measure noise, added noise that a resistor can add to it. And I'm sure what the process is. It's been
Yeah.
years since I paid attention to that, but they run a small current through it, and resistors themselves can actually add noise. And of course,
Yeah.
you run that through an amplification circuit, and the
Right.
noise. And usually the noise level is really low, but it is additive when you have hundreds of resistors inside a device. There is some noise level, which is why you see people using some crazy expensive film resistors in line with the analog
Well,
circuitry.
it's like when you think about it like turntables, it's a miracle they even work because, they're amplifying such a small signal. So any noise is a problem.
Yeah,
right?
it becomes it's a sensitive circuit sometimes
Just-
in audio.
the volume control just sounds so good. I almost wish we had
It's
a
clear.
WA24 with a different one, just so
Yeah.
we could hear the difference in
Mhm.
AB because of how smooth that control is. But
Just to go off track a little bit, in two-channel audio, there are guys who have made passive volume controls for systems, over the years,
Mhm.
and they might use steppers or just resistive networks rather than a pot, or just a really really high-end potentiometer
Yeah.
in a box, where you could basically bypass or not use a preamp. You would
Mhm.
just use this passive one volume control with an in and out in a box,
Mhm.
and then run that from between your source and amp.
Yeah.
But that comes with its own pluses and minuses too, which we won't get into here. But the point is that this kind of experimentation with volume controls has been going on for a very long time in
Yes.
audio, in decades. Which is why Alps made a pot like this. I mean, you don't make pots like this unless you have a deep understanding of what the problems are with lower cost.
Well, yeah. You don't do it for fun.
Production. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy expensive part that
Yeah.
very, very few companies would ever even think of integrating into a design, So anyway, that's the Woo Audio W24,
well, it's going to be available on the website.
20th anniversary edition.
$12,999.
It's available on our site. Woo sells it, of course.
Yep, we
Woo
sells
Audio.
it, and it does not come with a power cable. So
Yeah.
if you buy from someone who happens to sell power cables,
Huh.
if you know anybody,
Mm.
Yeah.
I might know a guy. We might be able to help you out.
I think we have some JPS cords laying around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. In in the headphone industry, power cables aren't that popular, but you do at least need one,
Mhm.
and we do at least sell them.
If you're going to
So,
get one, you might as well get a good one.
Mm.
Get something that'll help this thing out and really interface to the wall or whatever your source of power is properly. So have at it, guys. If you have any questions, Norm's here. He's always at the phone. He's at the helm. Give him a call. He knows a fair amount about what this thing will mix up with and sound good with. And
call, email, chat through the website.
yeah,
Mhm.
Find me.
yeah. The guys at Woo are very knowledgeable. Mike is usually the guy that answers the phone there, and he also knows the toys real well. He knows our stuff. He knows these amps, and he'll help you. He'll help you choose the best thing for life, for your life going forward, and for enjoying yourself. Have fun with this, guys. Have fun with all this. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.